since the FBI put out their new requirements for service pistol, everyone knew Glock was working on a new gun based off their specs. And there was a lot of discussion and arguing and various hijinks on the internet about the new generation of Glock coming out. Well, the Generation 5 is now here, but no amount of discussion and arguing on the internet is going to change what Glock has done. There's some things they could have done that they didn't, and people aren't very happy about that. But I'd like to talk today about some of the things that Glock did do to the Generation 5, some of the things I do like, and some of the stuff that really doesn't matter. So today I was shooting a new stock Gen 4 and comparing this to the new Gen 5. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, how they both compare. But, so here's the Gen 5, and let's go over some of the differences and some of the things that Glock implemented, some of the upgrades, some of the things that they made different. And the first is that everybody's talking about for some reason is lack of finger grooves. Glock is saying it's revolutionary, but honestly, that's not the truth, because the Gen 1, the Gen 2 didn't have finger grooves, and then they added finger grooves for Gen 3 and Gen 4 and said that was revolutionary, and now there's no finger grooves. So little odd that they would do that, but it's just how it is. For me, I honestly don't care. There's no finger grooves. I'm used to shooting Glocks with finger grooves. I've got some Gen 4s and Gen 3s where they were shaved off, so it doesn't make a big deal to me. I honestly don't care, but I know some people are whining about not having finger grooves. Some people say it's great. Honestly, does it make that much of a difference when you actually start shooting like a stage like this or start shooting defensive style drills? Not really. It really doesn't make a big difference. Only if you're really feeling the gun and thinking about it and go, yeah, I like the finger grooves, or I don't. But as soon as you get down to really running and gunning, you don't really notice it. The next is the beveled front. So for some reason, Glock decided, hey, let's start doing a rounded front to help make our gun look a little less boxy. But the problem is, the Glock is a boxy gun to begin with. You can't add some curves and then it magically become like an M&P or magically become like another type of pistol. So I don't really like that, but that's an aesthetics thing. That's not going to change performance. They did say that it's going to create less of a snag hazard in holsters. As a holster maker, that's utter rubbish. That's not the case at all. This fits smoothly into a holster, just like a regular, you know, boxed edge Glock like a Gen 4 or Gen 3. So I think that's rubbish, and I think that's a selling point, they said, just because they wanted to say a selling point that really doesn't make a difference at all, even with a leather holster. One of the big changes that Glock did was they added a flared mag well into the pistol. And I know some of you guys out there that hate Glock because it's Glock, and you have your other brand of pistol that you like, you'll say, oh, well, my pistol has had a flared mag well for forever. Well, be that as it may, Glock has added one because that's what the FBI wanted, and I think it's kind of cool, but there's one thing I want to bring up that I haven't seen anybody else bring up, and that is, because there's a flared mag well, that's actually adding some width to the pistol. So if you're concealing, that's going to make it a little harder to conceal because you've got that edge now. And that's why I don't conceal with one of those magwell add-ons like an Agency or a Zev or a Salient, because that adds some width and makes it a little harder for me personally due to the clothing that I wear and my body type to conceal that pistol. So take that into consideration if you're getting a Gen 5. Makes it a little harder to conceal from appendix, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you know, whatever. So another thing that Glock did, and it's probably because there were so many companies making aftermarket barrels. There's probably about a dozen companies now, and last year was really the year of the Glock barrels. They started making a barrel that they're calling a marksman barrel. I find that a little funny because what really makes a marksman when it comes down to pistol shooting is not the barrel and not even the sights. It's how you manipulate that trigger. Are you consistent at effectively breaking that to the rear without deviating the pistol itself? Most people can't even outshoot a Generation 3 or Generation 4, Generation 2, or Generation 1 Glock barrel. I am a big fan of improving things. I think it's great that they have made the barrel better, but don't think this barrel is going to magically make you a marksman. That's not how this works. It's not how any of this works, but I am big on improvements, so I think that's pretty cool, but training is what you're going to need to invest in if you actually want to become a marksman. So another thing that Glock did that I think is actually kind of nice is they made it a little more ambidextrous. Back when they released the Gen 4, they made it so you could switch out the mag release to either side, which is pretty cool for lefties. But they added a left-handed slide lock, and that's probably because 10% of FBI agents are left-handed, and that's why they put it in there as a requirement for their new service pistol. So obviously this does not apply to me. I'm a right-handed person, but I think that's pretty nice. If you're a left-handed person and you want to shoot like a right-handed person, shoot a Glock like a right-handed person, definitely consider picking up a Gen 5, because then you'll be able to utilize that slide lock in that fashion. So they changed some of the internals. They changed the safety plunger from being circular and round to then being a square with little angles, and that's so I guess it's a little smoother. That may affect trigger pull, but honestly it didn't affect trigger pull too much for me as I was shooting this today. And then they also did some stuff to the trigger. They added a couple parts, and people were saying, oh, the trigger is awesome, it's great, it's not a Glock trigger. Well, I've got news for you all. It is a Glock trigger. It's just like a Glock trigger. It breaks like a Glock trigger. It's really not that much better. This one sure wasn't, and I've been shot probably about 800, 900 rounds to this today on this stage, and I really didn't feel any difference versus this and my new Gen 4. So don't think this trigger is amazing. It's a 1911 trigger. It's a drop-in, $200 Glock trigger you can get. It's not that. It's still a Glock trigger. Maybe once this is broken in with 5,000 rounds, it'll end up being a little bit different, but don't think this trigger is super amazing, because it really isn't. So a lot of people are asking, so do Gen 5 Glocks fit in holsters? Well, we run a holster company, so that's some stuff that I know about. This is a right-handed Sidecar. This is our very popular appendix-only holster that comes with a extra magazine carrier. This is what I carry with every day. I have one that carries with a Enforce APL, and yes, it does work. We're having to change some of our molds to accommodate the left-handed slide lock. As you can see on this right-handed one, it's exposed, so not an issue, but as soon as you start running a left-handed Sidecar, we're going to have to block out some of that, and all of our molds should be done by the time this video goes live. Now, there's one issue though. The distance between the top of the slide and the rail was widened by 0.02 inches. And so that does make a difference when you affix a weapon light. This is a Surefire X300 Ultra, a U-boat, and this is an X300 Ragnarok, and it's a little bit tight. But you can loosen the screws here because these have adjustable retention, and you can make that work just fine. This is a Safariland active retention Secret Squirrel holster. It seems to fit that just fine. I could loosen it a little bit here if I needed to. So yes, the Gen 5 will fit existing holsters. There's a couple little modifications we're doing to make them work a little bit better, but the Gen 5, for all my right-handed holsters, because I'm right-handed, works great. Works on our Ragnaroks, works on our Sidecars, our Raptors, our Nomads, different things like that. We're tweaking our molds a little bit to make them a little bit better. So you may want to email your holster company that you buy holsters from and just ask them, hey, what's going on with your holsters in Gen 5s? But T.REX Arms, we're making them all work fine, and a lot of the existing ones already work to begin with. So I set up this course of fire today to kind of see if there were any major differences between a stock Gen 4 19 and the stock Gen 5 19. And honestly, I didn't notice a whole lot of differences between the two. I was looking for, were there differences in reload speed, my split times, because the Gen 5 trigger is new and cool and better. And honestly, I didn't notice any of that. I was shooting steel at 40 yards. I was performing reloads on the move. I was having some targets up close. And I didn't notice any major differences between both guns. And I'm sure if you put them both and did bench rest shooting and did some other stuff like that, maybe shot some bill drills and used a shot timer, you might be able to find some little nuances and differences between both. But is that enough to justify switching out your Gen 4 for Gen 5? I don't think so. And I want to say something real quick to everybody on the internet who spend hours and hours and hours debating pistols and debating upgrades and barrels and optics and different things like that. And some of you guys out there that don't like Glock because Glock. Well, the fact of the matter is, none of that stuff matters at all. What really matters is, do you have the skills necessary to deliver accurate fire if you are in a dangerous situation, if your family's in a dangerous situation, if you are called to protect society? Because ultimately, those are the things that matter, not whether you have finger grooves or a flared magwell or these plastic sights versus metal sights. All that stuff can be great and can add little advantages, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things if you don't have the skills to back up the technology that you have. So I want to commend you guys to get out there and start training. If you don't train already, put in more time, leave the forums, leave social media. Don't spend so much time there, because your time invested in training is going to be far more effective to yourself, your family, and society, and that ultimately is what's going to make the biggest difference. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Lucas with T.REX Arms. time of 2029.